Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast, where we're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and if you want to know how to invest in the commercial multifamily real estate space to reach financial freedom faster and build wealth without having to manage the properties, then guess what? Today's conversation is the one that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise. Because today's guest began in real estate back in 2008 while working a full-time job in tech. That sounds familiar to me. He also was able to grow the business 10 times, and while having a 6-figure salary, still wasn't financially free. This is interesting. But listen, what happened in 2018, he started to pursue education and went from, hold on to your seats, 8 to 800 doors while working a full-time job. He's also a commercial real estate coach advisor, and he is the founder and host of the 5 Talents podcast. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the president and CEO of 5T Commercial Real Estate, Mr. Abel Pacheco. Abel, welcome to the show, man.
Man, Bailey, I'm so excited. Thank you very much for having me. I've seen you all over social media, and I'm like, I got to meet Billy, and I'm super pumped that I'm here interviewing now with you, man. So it's an honor and a pleasure, and thank you very much.
Likewise, man. This is really a lot of fun for me. I love your energy. I love your positivity. I love your story. We were talking about some things in the beginning. We have a lot of things in common, which is actually which is fun, which is a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to the Going Long family, learning more about you and how you're adding value. So let's jump right into it, man. As you know, I like to ask everybody the same 5 questions, kind of 2 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and then in the middle we'll talk about life and how you're doing all this really awesome stuff. So the first thing we'd all love to know, Abel, is where do you live in the United States?
Yeah, I am in San Antonio, Texas. I grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is south by the beach, so South Texas, Gulf Coast, by the water. Enjoyed beach life, and I was there till I was about 18, and then I left to San Antonio, Texas. So it's the Alamo City here in Texas, and it's about 2.5 hours north of where I grew up. And so now I've been doing real estate here since 2008, San Antonio, Texas, and I love the area. I love. We'll talk maybe about all the different investments that we're doing and in South Texas in general, but I love the market. Lived here, families here, all of the lineage. We have my cousin and family did the lineage back to the Battle of the Alamo and found out we had a Pacheco there, Jose Granado Pacheco, and he was one of the defenders of the Alamo. So anyways, it's Texas through and through.
All right, man. Cool. I appreciate that. And you've got a wonderful river walk there. I love San Antonio. Yeah. I think it's an amazing city.
It's amazing. I love the river walk. They've expanded it downtown and Pearl Brewery and really made some really nice areas for visitors, tourists. And then it's got a lot of great, market mechanics that we invested.
So we're going to jump into some of that stuff as well. So, which is great. And listen, you've got so much positivity already. I would love for you to share, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Wow. In the last 24 hours, seeing my baby girl and my baby boy just smile every single morning. It's a refresh every 24 hours. I would say that's probably one of the most positive things. And then from a work standpoint, it is we're at the tail end of creating our second fund. So we have a fund number 2 coming. And talking with the lawyer yesterday, he's like, "Hey, should be done in just a few more days. Let's wrap this thing up." And I'm excited about launching that.
So when you're able to see your children and they're smiling at you, and when you hear your funds already getting ready to launch, then that's definitely lots happening.
24 hours.
Oh,
It's a great 24 hours.
Definitely. So listen, Abel, I gave a couple of really, really high level parts about your story. Now, I'm sure there's a lot more to go into. So I would love for you to share with the entire Going Long family your backstory and your words, and maybe highlight some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey. And then you and I will kind of take it forward from there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for allowing me to share. And again, thanks for having me on. What you do, Billy, is just you're giving the education and insight to so many other people, and then allowing people to share their story on your platform, gives others the spark or the motivation or maybe inspiration, or somebody can resonate with my story versus someone else's and just say, you know what, I want to go do that too. But so I appreciate it. Yep. And again, my name is Abel Pacheco. So I grew up in Texas, like I mentioned. And when I started working in the professional career, my first job, and I call this my professional side, was working at Cutco. I did this in college. Now, I had other jobs leading up to college. I was always working hard. Like when I was younger, I had lawn mowing, landscaping service before the age of 16. So I kind of always did that. Then it turned into working at restaurants, dishwashers, all this stuff. Then I went in a busboy, and then I went on trying to be a waiter. And then I sold cell phones, I sold furniture, we sold cars for a while. But when I say the first professional job, because I worked at a company called Cutco and Vector Marketing, and I sold Cutco knives, and I sold Cutco knives for about 5 years. So it was my first lengthy job that I held. And I wore a suit the past three out of 5 years, because I was actually by definition, I was a business owner. I was a 1099 contractor for a company for a couple of years. And we would do in-home presentations, and I would show people kitchen cutlery, so knives. And I had to, set up appointments, manage my own schedule. I was a commission only. So early on, I realized if I took more risk, I would make more money. And that's what led me to sales, because the risk was if I didn't perform, then I didn't eat. But if I did perform, then I made more money, and I made more money than a lot of my friends at the time. It was probably around 19, 20-ish till about 24, 25 that I worked there. And as a 20-something-year-old kid, I made 50, 60 grand a year. And I was taking, snowboarding trips and going with my friends every Christmas and doing whatever the heck I wanted to, and picking up bar tabs when I was 21. And that's what allowed me to pay my way through college. And so that led to my next 10 years in IT hosting. So this is, the audience that we have together is, is awesome, because you're in tech. So I worked at a company called Rackspace, and Rackspace was right now it's a multi-billion-dollar IT hosting company. They're big in the cloud. They do a lot of IT as a service. And when I started in 2006, there was 600 people. When I left 10 years later, there was 6,000. It was $100 million a year company. Then it was a $2 billion company. So I guess by definition, I was part of the unicorn startup. And all the years that I was there, I was a sales guy too. So I led large teams. We talked about earlier this 10X run. I went from $5 million a year in business to $57 million a year in business. And while I was making more money, I found the same thing to be true that I learned at Cutco. The harder I worked, the more that I made, the more risk that I took, which is basically my pay plan. It was a 50-50 split. So 50 was a guaranteed paycheck and 50 was on your own. You gotta do something to make the other 50. I made more money as we performed better. So I felt like I had control. And that's why I liked sales, because it was an entrepreneurial kind of grind. It was you put some grit, put some persistence, dedication, effort, just make it happen, and you're going to perform. But through those years later, as I get older, I'm like 35, 36. I really understood that I had to invest in real estate when I was 26, but I just didn't have the ability to invest as much, as often. The young kid making less. And then as I got older, $200K. Well, it was like $60K when I started. 80K, 90K, 100K. Then it jumped to 150. And I was like, oh, I'm going to make so much money, 175K. And right around that time, towards the last back half of the career, somebody showed me a tool called mint.com, right? And so it measures, you plug in all your accounts and it measures your net worth, your assets minus all your liabilities. And I had never done a personal financial statement up to that time. I was managing, looking at my org or P&L, but I'd never done it for myself. And now that I was looking at that, I go, oh, I'm excited. What's this number going to be? How do they measure the millionaire? I want to be a millionaire. I don't have $1 million in the bank account, but assets count. And it took me 10 years to buy 8 houses while I was investing in tech. And my net worth was like 250K. And I go, well, how does that equate? Because I make 175 a year. What in the world? And then I realized, well, shoot, my lifestyle was good. I had a nice watch. I had some nice shoes. I had a nice car. My wife had a nice car. I was comfy, nice house. Things were comfortable. And I didn't even have kids at that point. So, I mean, my expenses were not going to my children. It was just us. Travel. We had all the sales trips. So we'd go and travel and, a bunch of different places. But what mattered to me most was, how do I create financial freedom and retirement? And I'm looking at the tail of the numbers and the tail of the tape. I go, I'm going to work till I'm like 60. What's going on? And that's so many multiple things. That was one of them that propelled me to say, I've got to try something different. I was at 8 houses and I had this 250K. Well, how does that mean I need to buy 30 houses to get to $1 million? And then how long is that going to take me? So it was right around that, many multiple things kind of coming together that pushed me to commercial real estate. And so I don't know how much we can pause here. I want to take my time to see if you have any questions, but that's kind of how I started, in this tech world and, trying to figure out, if I don't figure out a way to make money while I'm sleeping, then I'm going to work till I die. That's the Warren Buffett quote. And that quote just kind of got me. I go, well, we got to figure something else out. Yeah. Otherwise we're going to make the company tons of money and not keep any of it ourselves.
Yeah. So you just said so many things that resonate with so many of the Going Long family. I'm absolutely sure. And I have like 50 questions that I want to ask you, but here's the thing. I'm going to try and hold myself back. Cause even when you start talking about Cutco cutlery like that, so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I want to share stories, but we'll hold off for after the conversation for that. So the thing is, like you mentioned, 10 years, 8 houses, and then it was the whole thing of you going through your PFS or your personal financial statement. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned something that resonates, and I'm just curious how frequently you saw this, right? Because and this is something that really touches heart, right? Is that we spend so much time in our corporate roles, and so many of us are happy. Like I'm a happy corporate employee, right? At the same time, tend to know that a lot more about your own key performance indicators or KPIs than you do about your own PFS or personal financial statement.
It.
And I'm just curious because I see it all the time.
I mean,
what's your experience?
You're nailing it, Billy, because you put me in that boardroom when I had all the VPs around and I was a senior director or sales director, whatever the title was, right? We had this packet. I mean, I had an operations director, an operations leader, give me this packet once a week, and there's 20 pages, beautifully laid out, all the graphs and charts. I knew the top of funnel. I knew my conversion rate. I knew our close. I knew our gap to the quarterly number. I knew our stretch goal was, go from 400 million to 500 million. And how much do I need to get there quarterly? And you see all these different reports down from my team to multiple managers' teams down to their individuals. But one sheet of paper, one Excel that was like, this is Abel Pacheco's chart. How are you doing on your retirement? I didn't have one sheet that said, here's your assets minus your liabilities, and here's how long it's going to take for you to stop working or become financially free. I didn't have it. It's crazy.
How did that make you feel, man?
Yeah. Well, you're almost going to make me cry or tear up, just asking the question. There was a boardroom meeting, one of the last final things that just like cut me to the core. I'm meeting with the VP of finance. I'm meeting with the big guys, and they're celebrating our amazing year. You went from 200 million to 400 million. You doubled our business. And I'm like, man, that's a lot. I don't think I really looked at it that way. I go, this is a ton of revenue, a ton. And I didn't have one, but we made the company 200 every year. Right. So anyways, they were like, hey, guess what? You you earned yourself a quota increase. And everybody at the table laughs and chuckles. And I'm like, straight face as ever could be. I go, you're raising my quota again. You don't know how hard it took me to get from 2 to 4, and you're telling me you're going to raise it by another 100 million. And I knew what that meant was I was going to have to go deliver this news to 60 people on the sales floor that their quotas were increasing, but I was not going to increase their pay, that they were going to have to do more work and get paid less. And it would ultimately flow down to me. And, that part of it was how did it make me feel was, I'm doing something wrong. If I don't ever get out of this hamster wheel, there was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to continue that pace and have the financial freedom or the wealth creation or the legacy. Those things are even secondary. I'm just like still freeing up my time. How do I get there? And I was never going to be on a track. And now I kind of say, well, I'm still working on it. It's not like I stopped working. I'm actually work the same or even more hours today, but I can definitely have a different sheet of KPIs and financial trackers for myself and say, oh, now we've created our first $1 million in net worth, assets minus liabilities. Now I have a plan to create the second one. And it's not going to take me 40 years. I'm 41. This one will take me like 2 or 3. And how do I go from 2 to 4? That one's even, easier once I've got some momentum behind me. So it was like that pain that you absolutely had to feel, now to feel like the joy of saying, oh, I can clearly see a roadmap or a plan to get there. Now I just got to execute it the same way we were at the table of here's your roadmap and your plan to the corporate business and your financials. How do I relate that to myself? And so that's kind of what we did.
Man, and I love you sharing your vulnerability with us, because it is one of those things that's really, really difficult when you're a sales leader and you have to increase, because there's no, like, especially in the IT space, like there is only growth, anything other than growth doesn't exist. And even during really unique times in history, and those growths are usually double digits or more. And the salary increases are usually single digits, like in low single digits. And so there's a disparity. And so as a leader, you have to manage that, right? And so the fact that you're vulnerable with us and sharing that, because that it can be difficult. And at the same time, that was a painful situation for you. But then I love how you're sharing with us that you're running towards something more, right? You always you hear about that. Either you're running away from something or you're running towards something. And now you see something where you can actually create value for yourself, for your investors, for the people that you're continuing to educate and things like that. And you have a clear plan that you can execute against. I just love the fact that you are sharing that with us and giving it in a way that's really actionable and touches home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Abel, do you come from a family that is focused on real estate, or kind of like how in the world back in 2008 did you decide like it was time to get into real estate?
Well, like the backstories of so many people that I talked to in real estate, it was a 2006 or 2008 Robert Kiyosaki book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I read his follow-up book, Cash Flow Quadrant. And then I read the third book from Ken McElroy, The Trusted Advisor, Purple Yellow series, The ABCs of Real Estate Investing, and Credit Repair. All the purple and yellow books, I read like all of them back to back, I think in like 3 months or something. Whatever was out at the time, I read them all. And that's what kind of lit the ultimate fire under me to say, I got to buy a house. And I was actually going to buy a motorcycle. I had some money. I was the sales guy. I had a big commission, right? I'm like, oh, I can either buy a motorcycle, and I'm super happy. I test drove this motorcycle, and this guy's like, I'll show you how to ride it. Yeah, I'll show you how to. He didn't tell me that there's two brakes, a rear brake and a front brake on either side of the motorcycle. And I hit the front brake and I fell over. Anyways, I'm super happy. I crashed that motorcycle. I was okay.
I'm glad you're okay. I was just going to say, I'm glad that you were okay.
I was okay, but I crashed it. And what I ended up doing is say, I don't think I should get on a motorcycle. And I spent that money and I invested it and bought our first house. And then what was really cool was I had that I guess the tactical plan, the motivation from Robert Kiyosaki on how to create income generating assets, reduce liabilities. So I kind of had that there. But what I didn't realize, I look back now, my dad was the first real estate investor that I knew. And it was, I guess I'll call myself third gen real estate because my grandparents, they owned their house. San Antonio, Texas, kind of downtown rough neighborhood. There was like 7 or 8 brothers and sisters, all my aunts and uncles, and they lived in a 1-bedroom house. So if you can imagine 7, 8 kids in a 1-bedroom house, it was like the mom and dad and a couple little ones stay in the bedroom and everyone sleeps in the living room. And that's what they grew up in. And I see that house and I'm like, all of y'all lived in that like 600 square foot house. And it's, it's a rough area, rough neighborhood, but it was, yes, that was the first generation of real estate owner. The second, my dad bought a house and it was I grew up in a rough neighborhood until I was like 10 or 12 or something. But we bought this little house. It was a 2-bedroom house. And what my dad did was he bought, he got a different job, middle income, making a good salary. We moved to a middle income neighborhood. It was a nice 3-2, probably 1,200 square foot house. And we lived there, but he rented out the first one. And back then there was no property management tools or people could pay electronically. We would go to our house, our renters, and pick up the check every once a month, Saturday, and he would take me. And I saw that interaction, and afterwards I related it to, we picked up the rent, and then he would go treat me for a Saturday afternoon, and we'd have fun. And he would tell me, hey, what we're doing is we're renting that house. I go, didn't we? What about our other house? We live in this one. And I was just young enough to learn. No, he goes, I rent it out. They pay us and cover the mortgage, and we have a little extra, and that's why we're having a treat this Saturday afternoon. And nice. I was like, this is awesome. So it's that like initial subconsciously, whatever. I look back on it now, I go, I'm third gen. My grandparents owned that 1-bedroom. My dad owned the one and a rental. And that's about, he later lost both of the houses, which is unfortunate, running some businesses. But I tell him, hey man, it's because of you. Now we're invested in a lot of doors, and I'm excited to hear whatever. If I'm the 4th gen in this, then I'm excited to hear what my 5th gen and my 3-year-old and 1-year-olds are going to be doing when they're old enough.
So I love that story, man, and being able to see that sometimes just by osmosis, you didn't really have a strategic plan, but you were seeing kind of what someone else pays your mortgage, and then you have some extra, and then I can go have lunch with my dad. So that's kind of a cool thing, and I want to be able to perpetuate that cycle and continue to move it forward. So one of the other things that you mentioned, also, which kind of ties back into what we love being able to talk to people about here, is being able to, comfortably and confidently invest beyond your backyard. So you mentioned that you live in San Antonio, but it sounded to me, and probably a lot of the going long family was going, okay, but he's not just investing there. It sounds like he's investing in other places as well. So my question always is, the tradition says that we should invest where we live. I don't happen to believe that, and most people that are here don't believe that, depending on what you're doing. But I would love to know from your perspective, Abel, like why did you consider even investing beyond your backyard and then doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for your audience, man, you're in an amazing position as a passive investor, as somebody else leveraging other people's time, knowledge, and effort. It was actually this all rolled up into one big ball that helped me invest into more real estate than I ever thought I would get into. And it was actually partnerships as opposed to location. It still matters on the location, but me and my wife bought 8 houses, 10 years. We did it on our own with no partners. So we had to save all of our money and then go buy our deals. And it was a slow process. The moment I introduced partnership into the opportunity was the first time that I went from 1 house to 124 doors. Passively, we took our 401k money and we moved it to a self-directed IRA. When I left Rackspace, we had it free, so I was able to redirect it. And then we invested $50K into that 124 units. And other than, doing a little due diligence on the team, checking out the market, checking out the deal, signing agreements and wiring funds, my responsibility was over. I didn't have to go to any property. I didn't have to go check out anything with toilets, tenants, manage properties, manage rehab, do construction, babysit adults is what I end up doing as a single family when I talk to general contractors and them managing their people that do the work. I mean, that's really, I don't know, whatever reason, it's not fun managing that rehab part of it. But as a passive investor, you can do that. And I realized, well, shoot, I'm doing that in my own city. I'm doing that in San Antonio, Texas. I had invested 10 years prior in the city that I live. So I know San Antonio pretty well. That's where I was buying. And that was my first 124 units was San Antonio, Texas. Then we did a 282 unit deal. So we were in 400 doors, all in San Antonio, Texas. And then we did once I started converting to an active or general partner, looking for the deals, finding the deals, financing, putting them together ourselves, that was another 120 something unit. And then we did another 268 unit. So all 800 of these doors were in San Antonio, Texas still. And I go, okay, well, this is awesome. What am I actually doing? I'm leveraging other people, other teams, other property managers, asset managers, construction, rehab, all the professionals. Because once you get to the bigger deals, there's more professional company. It's not so much like you're babysitting anymore. Right. They actually do what they said they're going to do and show up on time. It's a big company. And I just started applying that. And I go, well, Abel, let me, I'm talking to myself. I go, Abel, you can at least give yourself permission. You've been in real estate for X number of years. You can buy a deal outside of your own city. And so that's what we did. We bought 120 units in Dallas, Texas, which it's for your listeners in other parts of the world. It's still Texas, but Texas is like its own country. It's huge. There's a 6-hour drive from San Antonio to Dallas or a couple hour flight. So it's still not, in my backyard, so to speak. So anyways, we invested in that one because there was a team that was managing it, asset managing it, construction, rehab, all the stuff that you want. Then we did again an 88 unit in McAllen, Texas, which is about 3.5 hours south. Then we're looking for our hometown deal, Corpus Christi, which is 2 hours south of where I'm at. And all of those assets, they are remote. They're remotely managed. I'm on the phone, asset managing it. You have calls with the property manager. They're the people that are boots on the ground doing the work. Like I don't sit in any of these deals in the leasing office. It's somebody that's helping me make sure that we're in tenants and leases are signed and marketing. And that's done on the internet these days too. But then you have local people that are there. And then you have construction, call it your on-site maintenance man, if it's, or a woman, but it's maybe a part-time, a full-time, depending on the staff, maybe 2 people if the apartment's big enough. All of that stuff is done there. That's what we hire. We factor them in, and that kind of gives you as a passive investor, or me, even as a general partner, the freedom to say, well, I can invest in the best markets. And it happens that when I look at the market mechanics, still San Antonio, Texas is really good. So I end up looking here first, but I can now open the aperture and say, what else is available to me and what can I go invest in?
Yeah, and I love that you share that story and how you break it down and really talking about you started where you were, and then after you built that level of confidence and trust and understanding and I'm going to elaborate here a little bit, but understanding the process and things like that, then you gave yourself the permission, as you said, to move beyond your backyard even further. And so what would you say is, because I think we're listening to you and a lot of people understand what you're saying, but there's still kind of this like, yeah, but it's so far away. Like, what would you say is like the secret sauce to being able to invest beyond your backyard? What would you say is the secret sauce to help you sleep well at night?
So the way I invested, it was super hard for me to give $50,000 of my own money, something that I had saved or it took me forever to save, because I was spending it like crazy. So it was a lot of years to save 50 grand. That is a difficult thing if you've never done it, to give to somebody else to say, hey, I'm going to give you 50K. For some reason, it's super easy when we give it to an institution. When we give it to a 401k, when we give it to a self-directed IRA, Vanguard, and I want the Vanguard 20 mix or the Vanguard 30 mix, what does that even mean? And also I started learning, what the heck am I investing in lately? If you Google or look at, Yahoo Finance and look at the majority of these things, what they're invested in, like prison stocks, like all kinds of just for me, like unethical things that I go, man, I was putting my money in there. Anyways, sorry, I got to off track.
No, please.
It was easy for me to trust this big institution that I didn't know, but it was harder for me to say, oh, look at this individual that's cranking away, that has a great track record of success. So the way I overcame that was I started asking questions. When you're fearful, when you're scared, it's because you have a lack of education or knowledge in the subject. Yeah. And you don't have any competence in that particular subject. So you're worried and scared and fearful. You lack confidence because you don't have any competence. So the moment you start educating yourself, you remove the fear, because now you're more confident, you're more educated, you can make better decisions with logical rationale and thought, much like we all do in the IT world. For some reason, in the IT world, or in our corporate worlds, it's very easy too. I'm going to try this. Did that work? Did it not? Very binary. Yes, it did work. Great. I'm going to hit that button 10 more times. But it's harder for us to do that in investing, like very binary. I'm going to try this out. If you don't try it out, you're never going to get those results that you're looking for. It happens in IT. We do it the same in investing. It didn't work. Okay, well, it happens. Let me educate myself and figure out what I need to learn to remove that issue or the problem that occurred. And then where do I find the button that does work? And let me hit that 10 times and let me just do that again. So hopefully some of that has helped, but it's really just, talking, know, like, and trust. We kind of come back to that. Who do you know? Who do you like them? Do you trust them? How do you build up? It's going to take some time. You have to ask the questions, ask the track record, ask experience, ask how they do it. You learn, you become knowledgeable. You start to ask about a market or a deal, and you ask the right questions. Why are you investing in this market? Why are the market mechanics good? How do you know we're going to get the rents that we want to increase for this multifamily investing anyways? How do I know I'm going to get the rental increase? How do I know my forced appreciation is going to work that way? How do I know the cap rates are going to move in the way that you're looking for? All these things lead to, how do I know I'm going to double my money in 5 years with you? Or how do I know you're going to get double the money in 6 years? How do I do that? And that's kind of what just takes some time. But if you dig in, you can overcome a lot of that fear and that worry. And I absolutely get it. I heard something else, Billy, that it's harder sometimes to give $50,000 of our money for an investment. It's harder to do that than to drop off our kids at a babysitter's. And our children, for any family, any mothers and dads, how precious your children are. There's no price you can put on how valuable they are to you. But sometimes it's easier to do that. Let me drop my kids off at a babysitter that I took off a referral than it is to give $50,000 away. And if you can change that mindset and say, well, I trust this process. Why? Well, there's a referral or there's somebody there, then you need to apply it to some investments and take some action.
So you just said so many things in there, and I know everybody's like writing things down and like, oh my gosh, he just said this, and oh my gosh, yeah, I gotta follow up with him on that. What does he mean by that? But when you talk about the analogy with the children, is it is really, sometimes people will say, well, I'm gonna put 50 grand, 100 grand, I'm going to put it in this thing that I don't know anything about, that's investing in these things that I have absolutely nothing about. But to build a relationship with someone who can actually help you, will be there, will answer your phone call versus an 800 number and blah, 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 blah. There's like this mental block that happens with people. And going back to the beginning with the question, like the thing that I want to really bring out in terms of like that the long distance part is, it's really being able to, like, so that people can sleep well at night. The things that you were talking about, it really comes down to making sure that you are understanding that like, and trust the team that is working in a specific location, right? Because if like, and trust that team that is going to be managing the asset on a daily basis, going to be screening the different residents that are going to be living in your property, that's going to be doing all the operational things that are important, then it doesn't really matter where you are, and you can still sleep well at night, even in your own home or on vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the team, the deal, and the market. And those are the three things a passive investor should absolutely do due diligence on. And if you don't know the right questions, then you have to educate yourself even on that so that you can screen the deal, the team, and the market.
Yeah, and and I know this is one of the things that you are a master at, is really helping people to understand. So because we do have a lot of passive investors that are here that are listening, and I would love, you talked about San Antonio, and some people are just getting started, so they may not know exactly when you talk about the compressed cap rates or when you're looking on the exit and things like that. So maybe help us understand, how do you also help to educate other passive investors so that they do feel comfortable asking sometimes questions that, you don't know what you don't know sometimes?
So from the education side, that's one of the reasons I started a podcast, probably like yourself, is as you ask questions, you get a lot of knowledge back. So I wanted to do the same. And I kind of view that as my master's, so to speak, because I looked at all the top players that I could find, and I just asked them all the questions that I wanted. So that information is filtered on our podcast, and we've done 150 shows, some really great people. So there's a ton of content. That was my way to give at scale. I don't know how many downloads we've had, but there's no way I would have been able to talk to every single person, as many people, and it's recorded, so it's there, right? Yep. But we do webinars every couple of weeks. We do educational webinars on a lot of different topics. We host a weekly meetup, so people can come every Wednesday afternoon during their lunch hour in the US at 12 Central Standard Time, 12:30 Central Standard Time. We come in and we have different guests, and that's a way for our investors to learn. We do a newsletter. So a newsletter pushes out information every month on what we're doing, how we're doing it. But the education side of it, as a passive investor, I don't think there's anything better than putting some money in and seeing the monthly report, because once your money's in there, I promise you'll be a better student. So like once you put your money in, you're like, oh, well, shoot, how does this work? And now all of a sudden all these things matter to you. It really does.
This is where we say hashtag Abel is correct. As soon as you place your capital, it gets your mind where it needs to be. Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's absolutely golden. Speaking of which, so one of the things that I would love for you to just kind of talk about here, 5 talents, commercial real estate. You have your podcast. Talk to us, because you're talking about it now. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about some of the different things over the 150 episodes. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Would love to know, what are some of the things that, because I would love for the Going Long family to go over and check out Abel on his podcast and understand more about what are some of the different things that they can learn about there.
Mm-hmm. So about the podcast in general, I started with commercial real estate investing, multifamily syndication. It's kind of our sweet spot. We like it, know it. This is what we invest in. But we've started interviewing other people with other commercial asset classes, funds, triple net lease. We've started. There's basically all these other commercial asset classes you can invest in. I still love multifamily. All the apartments in my background are the deals that we have an interest in. And so it's pretty much what we cover, but we end up going over motivation. A lot of it is mindset. You realize that these people that have created, I guess, hundreds and millions of dollars of multifamily portfolios. In a few cases, there's a few billion-dollar portfolios that are on our recording, on our podcast. And they'll tell you like 80% of it is your mindset, 90% maybe. And then the last, percentage is mechanics. And while we want to learn about mechanics, we talk about those, quite often. A majority of our conversation is like just giving yourself permission to think bigger and how to do it and how to overcome fear and how to overcome the mental blocks and challenges. And that's why I bought single family for 10 years, because I didn't think I could buy anything bigger than this $200,000 house and put my money down. And I just didn't think bigger. And the moment you remove that cap, now you're like, oh, okay, now I can invest in $1,000 and this is how, and here's a path, and let's go work it just like any other one. So we talk a lot about these subjects, and happy to have anyone on there. Mention Billy. Hey, I heard you on Billy Keel's show. That way I'm blessed, and I know, and I can reach back out to him and say, thank you.
And yeah, that is one of the things that I want to be able to say to the entire Going Long family, which is basically, take some time. Abel's got a fantastic podcast. He's talked to you about some of the other different things that you can learn. And I really want to recommend that you go over and check him out on his podcast as well. So lots going on there, lots of really, really positive things. So, listen, I know we're like, one of the things is we kind of like get into the going long final 3 questions, but I never ask the going long final 3, Abel, until you tell me that you're ready for me to ask. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready, brother.
All
Whenever
right,
you're
here
ready.
we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right, fantastic. So listen, the very first thing is we started with you over in San Antonio, and I'd love it to bring it back this way to Europe, because that's where I am. What is your like favorite European city, Abel, either that you visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
So I have not yet been to Europe, and it was kind of in that mindset. We need to go. I know my wife is waiting for the trip, and I would love to be in France or Spain, those kind of, a couple of countries that are there, but there's so many, right? I've seen some beautiful pictures of Greece and Germany and all of them. So I don't know. I'm going to say France for a moment, but my wife may say, no, I want to go here first. Whatever she wants to do, she's going to tell me.
There you go. Happy wife, happy life, man. So that's good stuff. And I started in Paris, France in 2001. It was supposed to be a 1-year sabbatical. It's been 20 years, 3 countries. And we'll talk about that another time. Yeah. We'll talk about we'll talk about that at a different time. So listen, so here's the thing. The other thing, Abel, that I've recognized, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is like really successful people. The reason that they're successful is because they've only made one mistake in their entire path. I get that wrong every single time. That's always, I want to say the one thing and it comes out wrong. So no, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Like one of the things that really successful people do is that they make lots and lots and lots of mistakes. They have lots of learning opportunities. And the difference is how those really successful people react to those mistakes or those learning opportunities. And with you being a very successful person, I would love for you to share with us, like, what is one lesson that you've learned after having one of those mistakes or learning opportunities that you would like to share with the Going Long family?
That's, you are so 100% true. I would say, almost exactly what you said is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is that when you make a mistake, when you fail, when you don't hit your goal, when you don't have success, however you want to call it, whether it's positive or negative, like that's required. That's actually necessary so that you can learn what went wrong and adjust to make it better and have success on the other side, because we're all going to have different definitions of success. Yep. What I view success and you view success and everybody else that's listening, everyone has their own hopes, dreams, and desires that they're trying to fulfill. But failure can always be viewed as the same thing. It's your inability to reach your goals. Like, I failed. But what most people disconnect or they don't put together is that the more time they fail, the better chances they have of reaching success. And the more that I've made mistakes, I've led myself in better positions for the next run. And I've just always had the persistence to keep going. And if you can couple those couple of mindsets, that you're going to fail, you're going to lose, you're not going to always achieve, but if you just keep going, you're going to do better on the next round, do better on the next round. And if this is our investing, you may skin your knees here and there, but if you don't do it, then the alternative is let's work till we die. And I don't want to work till we die. So figure it out. And that's kind of the mindset.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So continue to fail fast forward frequently and learn and pivot and adapt to the situation and be persistent. So love that. Love that. Thank you very much. And the last question, Abel, is we love to help everyone feed our brains with knowledge. And so what one book would you recommend to the Going Long family?
Ooh, it's hard on the one book. So I'm going to give 2. I'm sorry.
You can over-deliver.
Okay, good. One of them for me, I'm big on faith. So for anybody that, is faith or Christian, Christ follower, whatever, the Bible has so much good knowledge. Even if you're not, you should check out some Proverbs, and it really does provide a lot of good wisdom and insight on how to deal with people, how to partner, how to deal with, just life ongoing, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, mindset, right? So I'll give that one. And then another one that's not faith-based is going to be Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I love this book. I probably read it like 20 times over my 20-ish years since I found it. It's like interpersonal relationships 101, 201, 301. And the better you are working with people, the better you are going to perform at work at your W-2. So like at tech, your org, whether you're reporting up or reporting down, the interpersonal relationships you have between organizations and how to have better performance there at work. If you read this book, I guarantee you will make more money, you'll get promoted faster, and you'll do it in less time so that you can invest more for your financial freedom. It's good to make as much money as you can in W-2 while you're there. And then, at the same time, like it helps with personal relationships at the house, with your wife, with your children, all that good stuff. So anyways.
Yeah, so that is that's phenomenal, and we'll take both of those, and we'll make sure that they are on the show notes as well. And so, cool. Like Abel, the thing is, man, this has been an amazing, positive, enlightening, actionable oriented type of conversation. One that the Going Long family is very, very happy that they've invested their time with us. And I'm just thinking about your story, right? And thinking about you getting started and doing the lawns and doing food service and having gone through that and really having that customer service or service mentality and mindset, and then being able to, recognize that you can do some things in sales, and you started leading people like 60 teams of 60 people in the Cutco cutlery. And that's something that resonates a lot with me as well. And then as you continue to go, you're looking to help other people add value to their lives and being able to have more control over their time by investing their capital in the right way. You've across a number of different platforms, you're continuing to help to educate people, and you're doing it with such a wonderful smile and positive energy. And so I'm sure, Abel, there's so many people that are like, I got to find out more about Abel. I already know to go to his podcast. He's got some other things going on. Help us understand, what is the best way to find out more about you and what it is that what you're doing at 5T CRE?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much. I'd love to talk to anybody that's interested in passive investing, that's trying to get diversified across some multifamily or commercial real estate. You can go to our website at www.5tcre.com. That's the number 5tcre.com/invest. And that it's a good opportunity. Just put in your contact information. We'll set up a time. We can talk. On my website in general, it'll lead you to the book we wrote last year, our podcast, the web, all the stuff that we talked about earlier. So it's probably the best place. Thanks a lot, Billy.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. And so this is fantastic. And if you're not watching us on the video version, you should definitely check us out, because Abel has a fantastic graphic behind, and you can see the 5tcre.com. So you can go there and check them out. And so, Abel, I do want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. And thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well, Billy. Thank you very much. You do great work helping others get educated. So kudos to you investing and serving and helping others too.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And if you give me just like literally 30 seconds, just want to say a couple closing words to the Going Long family. Listen, Abel left so much wonderful, actionable content and things for you to be able to do to move forward faster. And you have an opportunity today to actually be a positive influence on someone else's life, like 2 or 3 other people's lives. So why don't you take a second and just share today's episode with like 2 or 3 other people that really needed to hear what Abel was talking about today, and you can be that person of reference for them. And at the same time, would really love to know what you think about today's conversation, and would ask that you leave an honest review. Just take a couple seconds. I don't ask for 5-star reviews. I just ask for an honest review. It's something that we continue to do to make the podcast better for you, and so we can continue to direct other like-minded individuals and continue to grow together. So take just a couple seconds, an honest review. And then, you know what? I'm really, really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. And until then, I want you to go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you like today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode. So go out and make it a great day.